As I said, Kevin Jacobson, I'm CEO of a company called Foxen, and I have an illustrious panel here who I'd love to have them introduce themselves, starting with you, John, down there at the end.
John Carlson, CEO of Mark Taylor Residential, based out of Phoenix, Arizona. We're a developer, manager, third party, and consultant. We have about 37,000 units in Nevada and Arizona.
Good afternoon, everybody. Everybody looks so somber. What's going on? Not enough cafe. I'm Gigi Giannoni. I'm Senior Vice President of CX and Marketing for Gables Residential, and happy to be here. I've been in the industry, we'll just say, over 30 years, and it's been a great ride, and very excited to see the changes that are happening and looking forward to our conversation today.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Andy Dunn with Calix. I appreciate them scheduling us here at 3:05 Pacific time after everyone's had lots of heavy foods all afternoon. But we've got some great content for you. Hopefully we can liven this room up a little bit. Let me tell you a little bit about Calix. Calix is a cloud and AI platform company, really intimately focused on helping broadband service providers provide really experience-led connectivity. What does that mean? That means it's easy to use, frictionless, easy to deploy, and makes it so that your residents don't have to worry about how they're going to get connected.
Awesome. Welcome to the panel. We are going to talk about revolutionizing the resident experience in this panel. So I will kick us off with our first topic. Question is, how are you using technology to design a frictionless resident experience that delivers real impact? And we'd love to start down the end with you, John.
I'll start with a famous quote, which I like to use. If you guys know Fred Smith, former CEO of FedEx, unfortunately passed away last year. He had a great statement, and if you've never heard his story, it's phenomenal. I'd read his book. But he talks about automating the routine and humanizing the exception. So when we think about our brand through Mark Taylor, and I always think as our brand first, so part of our vision statement is to be the most admired brand in the industry. And I think a component of that is building a brand over time. So we've been in business 41 years, but really have tripled down on our focus on that over the last 10 years. And I'll go back to 2014 to shorten the answer. 2014, we did a brand study. We were managing B and C assets, and we found that most of our negative reviews were on those assets. So there was a disconnect between luxury living and what we were providing. And they were used to a Class A provider for Mark Taylor over those many years. So we shifted, we fired ourselves on 5 deals and said we're going to stick with a Class A only mindset. And fast forward to today, I mentioned Fred because we're really focused on that tech stack. And that's not more tech, but getting it right. So creating frictionless experiences for our residents and prospects. And I think in order to do that, you also have to have the investment in people. So one of our strategic initiatives is people first out of the 3. It has to be people first. So it's really about supporting that service mechanism at a 5-star level, which we'll talk about more in a moment. But if you have that 5-star service through your employee base, you can create that 5-star experience for your customers, including prospects. So the tech just has to be underlying that and work and function and be efficient. So if you can take out those friction points with the right tech, service it with a layer of personnel that is 5-star, I think you can be successful.
Gigi, anything you want to add?
Yeah, so I do agree with what you said. I also do believe, though, that it's hard. And those of us that are in the industry really realize how challenging it can be to balance the technology with the people side of the business, because the people side of the business, you're still dealing with an intangible. Technology, once you get it right, it's process, it's all process. And so we're going to discuss a little bit more about it, but I think the balance between technology and how you take care of your residents and your prospects and each other at the communities is based on service. And a lot of times I believe that people confuse service with amenities. I can't deliver great service. I was built in 1979. I'm a garden style. I don't have all the bells and whistles. Well, I'm not talking about the amenities you have to offer. I'm talking about the quality of service you deliver. And you can deliver that service whether you're, selling a VW Bug or whether you're selling a Maserati. It doesn't matter, because it's all about the people interaction and establishing and building that relationship. So I think, right, leveraging the tech stack along with really having people understand what customer service about is going to be what's going to take us into the future.
You both really hit on the balancing of technology and people, which lends to a specific question. from a resident experience standpoint, how do you decide what to keep hands-on versus automate? How does technology help your teams focus more on the human connection? So it's really just, maybe we could double click on that, get a little more specific. Do you want to kick us off, Andy?
Yeah, sure. It's a struggle, right? I don't know that anyone is really doing it well today, but those that do it best focus on exactly what's been described up here, automating the mundane so that your team can focus on the experiences that really matter. Anybody that was in here for the last session, raise your hand. It's actually really good. I'm glad we popped in early. But there was a stat that the gentleman threw up that from Burger King that suggested that 50%, a leasing agent is 50% more likely to close if they laugh. Well, you can't automate laughter, right? You want to automate the dumb stuff like door locks so that your people can engage and laugh. And I mean, if you're talking about that kind of financial upside, why wouldn't you do that? So it's a struggle, but we're a worthy endeavor if you can figure out how to do it properly.
Do you want to pick it up from there?
So I think how we choose our technology platforms is very critical. So we need to realize that we still have people on site that are just starting out in our industry. They're sales agents, leasing consultants, whatever you call them, whatever terminology you may have. But there are sometimes 23, 24-year-olds, or you have very seasoned folks that love what they do and they've been in the industry and they're 55 years old. But no matter what age they are or what demographic, the bottom line is tech stacks can be very complicated. And people on site will always say in the corporate office, you guys sit up there and you just keep rolling out platforms. And they're hard and they're complicated. So the key is to select the platforms that's going to best service your on-site teams so that they can leverage it to allow them to perform what they are there to do, which is sell and or lease apartments. So we get excited about all the tech stacks that are out there, and there are a lot of really, really good ones. But the question is, what are we going to embrace, and then how are we going to make it work? And take it slowly, one step at a time, because in the end, it really is about the customer service and how we're going to transition, right, the on-site teams from doing the day-to-day stuff that are required to really leveraging their assets, which are their sales skills, which is why we hire them in the first place, and make sure that they lease apartments. And I think that's critical. So whatever data that gets input has to be able to affect that, or it's not really doing anything that we need.
Yeah, I think we also make assumptions about what our customers want and what our employees need. So I think you really have to consider your data set. So we just did a full roll-up analysis through 2025 for our centralized services. And guess what the number was for actually closed leases on self-guided tours and virtual tours? It was 52%, so more than half. So that number is telling me, and we're just learning how to do this correctly, in my opinion. We started centralization in 2019. So the customer, to me, is telling me that they like to self-select. Now, I believe that you have to meet them at a 5-star level. So if they want a personal guided tour, we have to be there for them, and it has to be 5-star. The tech stack, if done right, it's almost like the grocery store door. It just opens at the front entrance and closes automatically. You don't think about it unless it's locked closed and you can't get through. So if your tech stack eliminates all of those stop gaps, all of those pressure points, and you have a layer of support with the service, I think you're going to do the right things. But I think you have to listen to your customer and move with data.
No, so couple comments on just the tech stack and selecting the right tools. So that leads us to our next question. How do you think, everyone's talking about having too many vendors, and it's how do you get them to work with each other, and how do we create a cohesive experience? What are some of the principles that you think about when you think about selecting those vendors and ensuring that they're in the background when they need to be and doing their job collectively and working together and to deliver a whole cohesive resident experience? And maybe we could start with you again, Andy.
I think it's prudent in this case to work backwards. You guys just kind of mentioned the resident experience. I think you need to start with the end in mind and what's the outcome, the desired outcome, and how are you going to get there? And then you select vendors and platforms to help you achieve those outcomes. More isn't necessarily better. It's, we heard, again, in that last session about dashboard fatigue. I think all of us can relate to that. We all have a bunch of tools that our employers use, and you're like, where do I even find that? There's so many things. So more isn't better. But again, if you start with the end in mind and select the right partner that can scale and grow over time to help you achieve repeatable results, I think that's a really good place to start.
Yeah, I think you're right. You have to back into what your ultimate vision is for what you're trying to accomplish. So I think it's the whiteboard. You're trying to figure out exactly what the end game is, and then you back into it and you understand, okay, what are we trying to do or solve for? And I think too many organizations, and Don Beveridge, 20 just talked a lot about this last year, in terms of property tech fatigue, property tech stack fatigue, and just adding layers and layers and layers, regardless if there's an open API platform or not to support those endeavors. If it's not smooth and efficient, you just have boom, 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 you have 5 points, touch points, 5 apps, your staff's, they're logging into 7 different systems. It's very difficult on both sides. So I think you have to understand exactly where you're going and allow yourself to say no in the moment. Like, I know it sounds great, and I think it would solve these 2 issues, but is it gonna help me for my 2030 and beyond plan? I don't know if it will. So you have to think about that in consideration. I think about 2019, we spent a lot of time and effort and money on devising this perfect move-in plan, right? So today, if I think about fast forward to 2026, I'm like, will that be necessary forever? I didn't know, so we did it. Our numbers last year, again, for 2025, centralized services, where it was allowed 82% of our actual prospects that were moving in selected touchless move-in. They didn't want to deal with us. They just wanted to move into their unit. And that gave them freedom of what? Time. They can move in any time. Like 12:01 a.m., it's go time. And that's allowed us to free up, I'll say, very specific, important time for our prospects and residents. And it doesn't rely on us to stop that, right? Oh, we had someone call in sick today, or the process is stopped here. So understanding, again, what's the feedback loop? What are our customers telling us? And then leaning in on that and supporting it without adding layers of tech.
Anything else, Gigi, you want to add to this?
So I definitely agree with that. I'm curious in the audience here, how many folks use a CRM? When did you implement the CRM? Was it last 5 years? Last 2 years? Last 10 years? Yeah. So our experience was when we implemented the CRM that we found that the CRM was not something you learn overnight. And so it's one of those tech stacks that you implemented and you continuously can build upon it, you can add to it, you can learn it. But that, for example, is one step in the technology process that we realized there were so many different opportunities that we could leverage with the CRM. And then we needed to make sure, right, that it tied to some of the different platforms that we utilized. But there's so much data that can be extrapolated if a CRM, for example, is being used properly. And then that then ties to, after you go through and you scrub all the data and you look at it, you really realize that what people want in the end are choices. And we talked about that. So we give people choices. It doesn't matter if you're a Class A, a Class B, or a Class C. But prospects want choices. So we have to meet them to where they're coming, number one. But number two, yes, it's going to differ if somebody is renting a 2-bedroom at $5,000 a month or if they're renting a 2-bedroom at $2,000 a month. They're going to want choices and different ways to be treated and different ways to be handled, even though it's all service, right? There's still more bells and whistles that have to be delivered, whether we like it or not. That's just the way the experience is. And so we need to be prepared as developers and management companies to be able to deliver services at different levels to different clienteles, because that is going to be the expectation. And we're going to talk about what we all see in the future. But that, to me, is definitely a key process that we need to realize, and it's all about the quality and the signature of service that's going to tie to those expectations. Because we don't deliver, people have a lot of choices, and they'll just go somewhere else.
That resonates with me, and I would say we're, from Foxen perspective, we have a suite of compliance-oriented solutions. We do renters insurance compliance, rent reporting, and pet compliance. And we think about, we design, we're one of the vendors who's trying not to complicate the stack. And when we think about just what options are we providing to, whether it's clients or residents, to get answers to questions, to resolve inquiries, and make sure if someone wants to pick up the phone and call, you got to make that available. If someone they prefer to email, you got to make that available. So just thinking about how we provide those paths is something that we hear regularly from clients who are trying to simplify their stack and give options, like you said, Gigi. On that point, so we've been talking about, and even back to the last session, just how to create the, you got to do 2 things. Well, first of all, we got to be available 24/7. Talking about moving in at 1 a.m., John, that's incredible. But also, people want now, and then they also want the human connection at certain times, and someone that not just yelling into a box to solve a problem that's not equipped to solve. So when you're thinking about needing to be supporting 24/7 across leasing, onboarding, and just all the everyday interactions, how do you think about intentionally designing for the human moments that really make a difference?
Well, my daughter and I joke about this. She's 14, and she loves to DoorDash the, what are the cookies called? Crumble, right? Yeah. So you guys like Crumble? Everyone loves Crumble. So I'm like, there it is. Magically, it just shows up. She's like, yeah, it'll be here in 22 minutes. And lo and behold, it's there in 22 minutes, right? And it's exactly right every time. Has she ever called DoorDash to find out where a Crumble is? Hell no. She doesn't call DoorDash. Doesn't have to, because it's reliable, right? It's predictable. You know when you order, it's going to function. You're going to get notifications along the way, so there's no questions. Oh, delivery outside of the Ring doorbell. You get it on your app, like it's arrived. So when I think about the simplicity of Uber, Amazon, DoorDash, all of those things, we are way behind as an industry in terms of those sectors, right? So I think we're chasing in an accelerated fashion to get there, but that has to be solved first. And I think when you do a deep dive on where we sit today, a PMS might, Gary, right, you guys have our data, but it's our data. I think eventually data will be in one layer. Point solutions, maybe, but you'll have direct access to your data. You'll understand exactly how to make decisions. You'll understand exactly what your customers want, your employees, all of those things. It'll be very transparent. And I think with the evolution of AI, I had to wait 30 minutes to say AI. Thank God I did. That will change the game, right? So we're taking on technology at an accelerated rate. Do you think it'll slow down or speed up over the next 5 years? It will speed up. So you can latch onto a bunch of stuff and say, oh, I'm in the tech now, but what happens in 12 months when there's a better service, 3.0, 4.0? So you have to be careful with who you pick, right? Who's your horse? So you have to understand where you're going and why, and back into that. So I think from an human experience perspective, if you do that, if you solve most of that, and you spend a lot of time creating a service-orientated, I'll say, employee base, whoever supports you in sales or back of the house, all of those things, you'll probably be successful. And it's about, think about Isidore Sharp, who started Four Seasons. He always talks about the service, not the architect, not the decor, not what kind of furniture you have. It's about the service. So if you can get that frictionless on the tech stack right, and then you solve with the right service, I know I'm repeating myself, but I think that's how you win.
Gigi, anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, I think all the apps that you mentioned have one thing in common, in that they have figured out the secret to how to customize what every person wants. You, and me, and you, and yet we're all different, right? But somehow they have figured out how to customize the deliverables, whether it's time, whether it's the products, whether it's how they deliver the service, whether it's the kind of person who might be delivering to you, or do you want it, in a gift bag, not in a gift bag, but they offer so many different alternatives and options. And so when we look at our industry, we don't do that. And we're still doing some things more advanced than we did 5 years ago, but we're still a little bit behind the 8 ball. And so the question is, how do we offer a simple tech stack that allows you to customize, reach the customer, meet them where they're at, offer them choices, yet still deliver that level of service that everybody is expecting, no matter how much money they're spending? And to me, those are the key things that we as an industry need to focus on, and we know vendors are focusing on that as well, because they know that need is there. But before we all get there, we have to figure out how to do it. So even if it's personalization on cards and entering information into a CRM or things like that, we have to figure out how to get there, because we just keep falling farther behind if we don't.
I know the example that came to mind for us is we spent a ridiculous amount of time thinking about a resident who's just trying to submit a renter's insurance policy and get that part of it done so they can get moved into their new unit that they're excited about. And so, talked about picking the right horse. Well, a lot of alternatives, you can send it into an email and then we'll get back to you in 2 days and let you know if it works. Or, we've built some proprietary technology that analyzes any COI and says, hey, this looks like it's correct, we're gonna approve it, or hey, real time, here's the feedback, so you don't have to come back to this 2 days from now. And it's like, those are the little moments where we're trying to make sure that we're not getting in the way of a move-in or a really great resident experience with something that's really needs to be kind of just checkbox done. So on that point, earning renewals, retaining great residents is top of mind for everyone in the industry right now. How do you guys think about some of the services, or you mentioned amenities earlier, Gigi, that can drive to some of that long-term satisfaction for people to want to stick around, and just getting those little things right from a services and amenities standpoint? Maybe we start with you, Andy.
Yeah, I think I have a little bit of a different perspective on this. There was a lot of conversation up here about bespoke services. And
Throw a
meeting people
fastball.
where-
We'll just get-
people
let's
where
get
they
going.
are, which is absolutely right. You want people to feel unique and special. But a lot of these so-called amenities that have existed in the past are table stakes today. Things like connectivity. And folks in your industry spend a lot of time, money, and effort branding their properties, making an experiential promise to their prospective owners, renters, and then working hard to deliver on that promise. So I think it's really important to own as much of that resident experience as possible. Take managed Wi-Fi, for instance. It's always kind of blown my mind that a beautiful new property will go up and they'll spend a ton of money on the way the place smells and the paint colors and all of those things. And then they say, internet for all of my residents working at home. I'm gonna leave that totally up in the air and we'll see what happens. And at the end of the day, when the residents, or if the resident has a crummy experience with their connectivity, it's not the internet provider that really feels that, it's the property. And that's how you create challenges for yourself in terms of re-upping and leasing and things like that. So as the resident evolves and more so-called amenities and things that have been seen as add-ons in the past become table stakes, I think we'll see a trend where owners and developers take more ownership of these things and try and really align the experience with their residential promises.
So I agree 100%, and that's why at the very beginning I said it's really important to align with the right vendors, because the vendors really have to understand the challenges that we have, and sometimes they're surprises. We just delivered a building in Washington, D.C., and beautiful building, right? Beat delivery schedule, beat our expected rents, and we had the greatest challenge with Wi-Fi, and it was not a good experience. But what it did teach us was it's all about the communication, it's all about fixing the problem. But honestly, people really don't care about what you did or how you've handled it. Honestly, they don't, because Wi-Fi is so typical now. They're like, how can you deliver a building and not have working Wi-Fi, right? I mean,
It's a utility.
yeah,
Right.
I mean, and honestly, if I were living there, I would ask the same question, like, really? This is, right? English 101, you have to have Wi-Fi. But crap happens, and so we had a problem that we had to rectify and fix. So, I do agree with you. I think that you have to deliver upon expectations, and I think there are standard things that everybody has come to expect now in a building. Again, whether it's an A, a B, or a C-class building, doesn't matter. There are the basic expectations that you have to deliver upon. And then after that, right, it's icing on the cake. But if you don't deliver the basics, tech stack or no tech stack, beautiful building, no beautiful building, it really doesn't matter.
What else is the basics, John?
I'll be pithy. Gigi covered most of it, I think. So if someone chooses your building, they're doing it for many reasons: location, quality of building, potentially brand, location, all this. I mean, all of those are layers. But I think for us, when you have a brand promise, you have to execute on that. So when you promise something, you have to deliver. And when you execute on that in a disciplined, consistent fashion, you create trust. And when that trust is elevated, meaning I trust this management company, I trust this community, all of those things, I think the experience for that resident resonates in terms of their conversations. They start to be a sounding board for your organization or that community. Oh, go live at XYZ community. It's great for you. And by doing that, and I think things always happen, right? So Wi-Fi breaks, something always goes wrong, right? That's just reality. We have 60,000 residents. So then it's about clarity in terms of they have a concern or an issue. How fast do you solve it? How easy is it to solve it? Is there one source of truth? Do you have to call 5 people? Do I need to elevate that to a regional? Can the manager at the site level handle it? Can my centralized platform handle it? And we do our best to empower all of our employees at that first touch point to solve it. Like, don't say, I got to talk to my manager, I got to talk to my region. Like, Jesus Christ, just solve it. If it's a $100 issue, solve it, right? And there's caps. But of course, empower your employees, empower your team to deliver that 5-star service in the moment. They're like, I don't have to worry about my dishwasher that broke yesterday. I know it's going to be fixed in 24 hours. And it's amazing how much maintenance carries forward in terms of reviews. And we noticed that, so I'm going to give a shout out to my team in the audience today. But in 2025, we were rated #1 by the Tally Awards by Jay Turner, so Tenant and Loyalty Index, #1 in the country for 10,000 units or over. And that's just pure resident customer feedback. And that means the most to me, meaning they're saying good things about us. We're not perfect. That's not the goal. Part of our principle stack is be better than yesterday, do the right thing. There's 3 more, but I'll stop. If you do those 2 things in the moment for that customer, it usually solves their issue and it rectifies potentially their experience. Like, okay, Mark Taylor's gonna take care of me. I know they got my back. And that's how you keep that brand promise continuously alive over time.
I do want to add one more thing to what you said, and that is, I think a part of that whole experience too is relationship building. So, you know, when we talk about automation and AI doing this and AI doing that, I mean, that's great for AI to handle those things, kind of the administrative things or the things that are going to collect active data. But when it comes to the relationships with the residents on site and getting those renewals and establishing the referrals and getting the good writings on social media, you have to have those relationships. You have to build those. And that is not going to be done via AI. There has to be a fine balance.
Well, I disagree, Gigi. I'm just trying to disagree with you. No, hear me out.
disagree with me.
Okay, so fast forward 18 months, I believe this to be true. If our Taylor AI, which is our voice and chatbot, if Taylor understands what your journeys look like from first touch, they know everything about you, your kids' names, your dog's names, your birthday, what units you prefer, what amenities you like, Taylor's not going to forget about that. So Taylor's going to call you if you'd like to be called, if you like a text, sure, whatever. If you want to tweet, I don't care, whatever you want. It's customized, specifically bespoke for you as a resident. So Taylor calls you at, don't call me before 9 a.m., 9:01 a.m. Happy birthday, John. Happy 35th birthday. I wish I was 35. Happy birthday. And that's the personalization that AI will deliver, and I think it will be expected at some point, right? Jeff Bezos used to say it, like it's wow today, but tomorrow it's like, AI's calling me again for my birthday, but they don't forget. But my brother forgot, my mom forgot, AI didn't forget.
I do agree with that. I think that is coming, and I think the younger generations, for them it's going to be expected and known, but we're not quite there yet. So then the question is, how do we navigate for the next 10 years, right? How do we navigate and get there? And I still think, especially at the communities where you don't have people that are managing it, and there are buildings now that are being delivered that have no people on site, the biggest complaint they get is that at some point somebody wants to talk to somebody in person. And I don't know about people in the audience, but when I get frustrated, I want to talk to a human being that can hear me and feel me, okay? I don't want to talk to Larry Curly or Mo AI who then sends me the same response 5 different times, okay? Got it? Enough? Let me speak to somebody who really can engage with me, truly engage with me.
Taylor AI would never do that, though. Right? No. I think you actually weave together a good story here, because you were talking about just the opportune moments where someone's got to solve a problem and they have a chance and they got to do it. It made me think I'm going to forget which hotel it is, but it was a hotel that told every employee, like, hey, up to $1,000, like solve a guest problem if they have a problem.
Ritz does it.
Ritz, that's what it was. Yeah. And they built the whole brand on that over periods of years, and lots of guests could think back to specific moments, and it might have been a $10 issue, but they solved it right then and there, and it makes a difference combined with some of the technology. So, all right, our last question is it's going to be a little bit of a fun one. We're going to live in the future. We're fast forward, not just 18 months, but 5 years from now. And then, John, I encourage everyone to steal it. He talks about, if you haven't heard it a couple times, a 5-star experience. Always come back to what is a 5-star experience, which I think is a good thing to think about in any business. But 5 years from now, what does a 5-star experience look like, and where do you expect it? Think about the resident experience, the resident journey, and so what does that look like? Give some ideas, and then how are you preparing for that today, or how should people think about preparing for that?
Yeah, so our vision is that it's 5-star for clients, customers, employees. So how do you solve for that? You start with employees, and then you build the right tech. So I think in 5 years it'll be one source of truth for everything. Whether that means there's underlying, I'll say, different stacks of tech, but there's a layered face, meaning I'll use Taylor because that's our AI. So Taylor is orchestrating all of this back-end data and delivering 5-star experiences with clarity and precision at all times, 24/7. So we're a 24/7 model. Our business never stops operating, and we're really leaning into the customer in that bespoke experience. And it's probably so intensive in terms of like immediate feedback. I spoke to Agentless this morning, and they're getting 250 feedback loops within one tour, meaning they're hitting likes, they're hitting dislike, we like this experience, meaning It'll be a live, think of a boardroom where it's a live screen. Here's the resident sentiment this hour. It'll be very specific. And I think that will be demanded at some point, and we just have to get there. And I believe that the Uber, we'll just use Uber, DoorDash, the Amazons, the leasing process will look like that. It'll be seamless, it'll be frictionless. There's no issues there. I don't know what that means for point tech, PMSs, for various solutions. I have no idea. But I think that will be demanded by our customer, and we'll have to figure it out.
Andy, you want to pick up next?
Yeah,
Close with you,
I totally agree. I mean, gosh, 5 years in the future, if I knew that for sure, I wouldn't be sitting up here talking to you guys on a Tuesday. But I think you're right. It's going to feel effortless. And what that means, in practice, I'm not sure. I do think infrastructure as a differentiator will matter, and you kind of spoke to that. But that's work that can be done right now. Being very, very deliberate in the partners that you select and the tools that you invest in. Are they purpose-built? Do they make sense? Do they make sense for me now, and can they scale so that in 5 years I can improve and be delivering on whatever the experiential expectation is at that time? So, more to come. We're all going to go along for the ride, whether we like it or not. But I think it just kind of in summary is to be thoughtful now about how you're building things so that when that time does come, you're prepared.
Any thoughts, Gigi, on you?
So I believe everything's going to go to a one-stop shop, just like we saw or are seeing what's happening with Amazon. They started in goods, then they moved to groceries. Now they're doing pharmaceuticals. Who the heck knows what they're going to do next? They'll probably get into car deliverables and finding you a husband, finding you a wife. I have no idea. But whatever
I tried to order a leasing agent, but they weren't available.
They weren't, okay.
No.
But I do think our industry is going to go to a one-stop shop where I think we're going to be tying into moving companies, and any service that supports what we do will all come in under one umbrella so that it's ease of access. It'll all be it'll be technology driven, and it'll be simplified. I still think we will have human beings at the back end, but I'm telling you, these movies that you see out there that we didn't think were going to happen, it's all happened. And so when you look at these futuristic movies, they are happening, and it is going to be in our lifetime. And those of us that are older than others are going to sit there and roll our eyes and go, I don't get it. And for the upcoming generations, they're going to grow up with it, and it's going to be normal. But it will be simplified. It will be one stop. There will still be an importance on customer service, but it'll look very different.
Just interesting. Who saw the Brad Pitt, Tom Cruise battle, the AI video where they were fighting? Looked completely real, right? There was no staging on that rooftop. We just walked by one of the pubs within the MGM, and they had camera crews, they had 50 guys, they had security. They were doing a commercial just for that little pub for the MGM. I mean, there must have been $50,000 spent just in gear, today, just to set it up. And then all of the employee costs, all of the back end, the insurance, blocking out services. You could probably do that video in 10 minutes if you did it well with the right AI engineer or team. So, we've just scratched the surface.
And there you have it. That is our panel for today.